Inside Carolina Live coming at you. Duke, Carolina, round two today. Hour two of the show. And what a special shout out to Jay Billis for making time for little old Tommy and me. And Tommy, shout out to you and Jay Billis for having the same barber. That's impressive.
Hey,
Love,
man, we can't all be blessed. I don't know why you cover yours up all the time, but
good point. Well, another guy that's always been blessed with a pretty good do, and we had to break him out for a Carolina Duke game for obvious reasons. Danny Green, Danny, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me. Doing well.
Yeah, we talked about being blessed earlier. We have been blessed with having multiple national champions on this show recently, and you continue that trend. So first things first, I got to ask you, when somebody says to you, and you've had a very extensive, successful, multiple NBA championship career now,
hmm
but when somebody, especially a guy you might be sharing a locker room with, asks you or brings up the Duke Carolina rivalry now, where's the first place your mind goes?
Oh, like what I think of when I played? I always think about, of course, when we played in Cameron. 'Cause I've been lucky enough to have not lost there. I don't like to brag about it too much, but I mean, we've got a chance to beat them not just in their home gym, but on our during my 4 years there. We think we got the best of them most of the years. I think we've only lost a couple of times, but it was a hell of a time. It was a lot of fun, and of course, it's always fun to beat a team in their home court. Especially we played them during some of their senior nights. So yeah, I always think about playing them on our senior nights, their senior nights, and also on their building, and be able to come out with a victory and celebrate not on their home floor, but beating them at their home.
Who have you come up against in your career where maybe the Smack Talk's been a little spicier, maybe that's had a little bit more edge to it
Uh,
because of your history?
not too many people, man. Now that I'm so far removed, I mean, early on, probably when I was younger, it was more of a bigger deal. When I was fresh out, it's still a deal. Don't get me wrong, it's still a big deal. But there's a mutual respect between the ACC guys, so not just the Duke guys, NC State guys. We all come from the same place, and we end up playing on the same teams. There's a mutual respect there. I've got a chance to play. I was just in Memphis with Tyus. I got a chance to play with Seth. I've got a chance to play with a couple other Duke guys and play against them. So we have a little side bets here and there going when the games happen or when they come on, but there's not a bunch of trash talk. It all depends on the year too. Some years they have the group, they can talk a little bit more trash. Some years we do. Some years we know we may not have the group, and some years they may not have the group. It's not always equally favored in that talent, in the sense of the talent. Who gets the top recruits and so on and so forth. So it's a little tougher when it comes to that. But that now that we're older, there's a mutual respect, but we get excited for the game to see what's going to happen and see who can win the side bet.
Danny, when you look back, I mean, like I mentioned when we were off the air, I was like, please don't talk about how you're getting old because it seemed like yesterday when you were playing for Carolina. But
It happens fast.
it, how is it having gone through Carolina and then parlayed that into a very successful professional career? I mean, you've done things that a lot of guys would dream of doing as a
Mhm.
professional athlete. Um, how did Carolina sort of facilitate that for you um, while you were in Chapel Hill and then moving forward? And talk a little bit about that Carolina family aspect of it in the league.
Well, the Carolina family runs deep everywhere. Especially in the league, we've always had a lot of guys run throughout the league that have played. Numbers a little lower than usual, but everywhere you go, you're going to see somebody in the coaching staff, somebody in the playing, on the player, on the team, on the roster that comes from the Carolina family. But how it prepared me, I think most guys want to not go to big school, but be the man at their school. So now, even now, younger guys, they want to go to school where they're going to be featured and be the man, and that's not going to happen in the NBA. So I was fortunate enough to go to school that I wanted to go to school, like where I wanted to go, but also learned a lot of how to be, not the number one option or come off the bench, how to play and be, the glue guy, the role player. I think that prepared me more for the NBA than anything else. And also, learn from Coach Williams on how to be an adult, how to be a man, how to be, human, and do things the right way. So a lot of those things prepared me for life, but on the court, being a role player and not having such high expectations and be able to adapt and adjust to coming off the bench or being a role player is a lot easier to do when you do it in college, when you're in the league. When you come to the league and it's a big adjustment. It could be a culture shock to you if you're not used to not handling the ball or being the number one guy or the number one option or getting a bunch of shots. and having to adapt to that. It's not easy. It's not for everyone.
Let me follow there with a question, staying in that same area. Of course, we want to talk about Carolina Duke a little bit later, but you mentioned being a role player or knowing when you get your shot, you got to produce. I mean, it seems like that's the thing. That's what Hubert Davis has talked about with this bunch so much. And he doesn't play the bench a ton, but he expects them to be ready. What would you say to these young guys or these guys that are not playing 35, 40 minutes a game in college, specifically at Carolina? What would you tell them and how would you approach getting them and getting in their headspace so that they are productive when they do get that opportunity?
That every piece of the puzzle is important, and then if you're not ready when your number is called, it's going to be hard to produce. So the best way, I said, it comes full circle because when you're younger and you're athletic, you don't really have to warm up as much. But now that I'm older, the best way for me to stay in the game is to ride on the bike. Make sure during timeouts I'm stretching, I'm doing little things, I'm looking at the philosophies, I'm seeing what our coverages are, and that's how it keeps my mind in the game, which also keeps your body in the game. But also, as you're younger, you want to be prepared for when the opportunity comes, because there's always going to be opportunities. So you have to make sure that when you're in practice, when you're working out, you're working out at game speed. You're continue to get your conditioning in when you're not playing. You continue to lift your weight and keeping your body healthy and your mind, and also your game sharp. So you got to continue to work on your game. So the games and practices, or times that you're not playing a lot of minutes, you got to work out. So even right now for myself, I'm still learning the system. Everything I'm working on, learning the offense, but I've got opportunity now to work on my game a little bit more, get some extra shots up, get some extra ball handling, whatever it is, get some conditioning and some lifting. I'm going to do that so that when the opportunity comes, I'm not, it's not a shock to me. I'm ready for it. So I think, the mental approach of off the court, of attacking it in that sense of having your mind and body ready, then also on the court to being locked in to what the game coverages and the game plan is. So when your number is called, that you're not, that totally caught off guard.
Danny, we're talking with Danny Green, former national champion at North Carolina, multiple world champion in the NBA. Danny, I want to ask you, you were really good about not necessarily just being a rhythm shooter, but you found different ways to score and kind of stuff stats in your career. When you have a team like North Carolina who has struggled to shoot at times this year, and it hasn't just been one player, it's been, guys all over the roster have struggled to hit perimeter shots specifically. What's your mentality when you're trying to work out of that? When you do find yourself in a slump and it's not going the way you want it to go, how do you get out of that?
Well, shooters shoot, man. It's the only way to get out of a slump. You got to continue to shoot the ball. Obviously, put up extra shots before, after, and during practice. But in the game, find other ways to be impactful. And that's defensively, locking down your men, getting stops, getting steals, blocking a shot, diving on loose balls, whatever it takes to bring that energy up, to get yourself back in rhythm, to not thinking about it, or to, whatever hits you may have or mental thoughts that are affecting your shot until you make the next one. So all it takes is one to get hot. But during that duration of time when you're trying to figure out or find your rhythm, there's other ways you can impact the game by doing those little things.
So I mentioned a second ago, but you were a real stat stuffer in your time at Carolina, and Carolina's got a guy that he wasn't as much of a scorer as you were, but they've got a guy that's kind of that Swiss Army knife in Leaky Black right now. What do you see in Leaky's game that you like? And then I'm going to take it a step further. With his length and athleticism, do you think he has a place to eventually find a spot in the NBA somewhere?
For sure. I think confidence is the biggest part to play, and a lot of guys make or break careers, when it comes to the NBA and overseas. I definitely think he has the tools. I think he is very capable. I just think it's more of a mental thing for him than anything. And then once he has that mindset or that confidence or that attitude that I'm going to attack the rim, or I'm going to put pressure on the defense, or I'm going to do this, I think he's very capable of doing it. You've seen in a couple of instances where he's attacked the rim and dunked on teams, or got to the basket or knocked down shots when he's open. It's just a matter of just taking those shots confidently and knocking them down. He's very capable of being that X factor for them on both ends of the floor, defensively and offensively, to put pressure on the defense and attacking the rim, and also knocking down an occasional three. Defensively, get active, get steals, block some shots, rebound, and guard their best player. So I think he definitely has a place in the league if he continues to build his confidence from where he's at right now.
Danny, aside from the national championship that you guys won at Carolina, what's your biggest memory on the floor at North Carolina?
Wow. There's a couple, man. I mean, my senior night was a big memory for me. I got a chance to play in front of my family. My dad, who I wasn't sure was going to be able to see me play in college, was there. My brother was there. My family was there. And I was just said, I mean, these weren't on Carolina's floor, but playing against the rivalries like Duke and beating them on their home floor. So there was a couple of memories that I've shared or keep close to me that I'll never forget. And some of them on Carolina's floor, some of them on Duke's floor, but they all ended up in a win. Coming back from winning ACC tournament, coming back from beating Duke, and Franklin Street is flooded, and coming back from winning a national championship and having the streets flooded and celebrating that way. So it's been in 4 years I had a good amount of fond memories that I hold dear to me.
Yeah, it's fascinating to hear guys that were in the arena talk about it. Do you remember, obviously, the Paulus dunk that you had in Cameron is what everybody still talks about. I mean, there's a picture in the Inside Carolina office that Jim Hawkins took, and it's been on shirts. Now, as a player, do you remember specific plays like that? Or, is that so? Can you walk us through it? What do you remember about that night? I told you I was going to
It was my junior year. I remember it wasn't just a dunk, but the game. We were up for the game, of course. It was exciting. It was a lot of fun. I think both teams, I won't say evenly matched, but it wasn't like one team was so much better than the other. I don't recall. I know we were one of the top teams in the country. They might have been as well. I know our senior year, we were for sure one of the top teams in the country. But they've always had good talent. We had good talent. So it wasn't like an unevenly matched matchup. But came in, we came with a lot of excitement, had a big half. I had a lot of rebounds, a lot of block shots. I played the 3 and the 4, so I played some big men as well. But I just remember getting the rebound, pushing the floor, seeing guys ahead of me. And, was thinking to myself, he's probably not, because we practiced. That was actually a bad play according to our principles and how we practice. Coach Williams did not like when you throw the ball backwards in a transition fast break drill. So I threw it to Marcus. I thought it was him and Tyler, I think, on a 2-on-1 type situation. And I'm thinking he's going to throw it to lob to Tyler or however he's going to lay it up. But I was like, if he throws this thing back, I'm going to dunk the ball. And I'm like, he's probably not going to do it because Marcus is usually known to make the better play, the smarter play. Not saying it was not a smart play, but it was against one of our principles. So he threw the ball to me, and I was like, oh, thank God he threw it to me. I was like, oh shoot, okay. So I was like, I'm going up to dunk this ball. I'm like, I saw Greg Paul. I didn't really see who it was. I saw a body there, but I was like, he's definitely too low to take this charge, and they better not call a charge on me. So I'm either make them call a charge or a block, and I have to finish it strong, because if I don't, they're gonna call a charge. So yeah, I was just thinking, I hope the guy gives it back to me, and if he does, I'm going up strong with it, and I hope they don't call a charge. And they didn't. So it ended up, turning out to be a good play.
Do you remember anything that was said after that play about that play that stuck with you, or just what was your most memorable piece of either conversation between you and your teammates, maybe somebody in the stands? Because there's a lot of really good side shots of guys watching that play. So what did you take away from the aftermath of that?
Just the bench going crazy. And then at halftime, Greg Little and a couple other guys, Mike Copeland, just being super excited. It's halftime. We're still locked in. We have another half to play, but they're like, DG, I didn't know you could, they're super excited and hyped. Like, I know you could do all that, that type of thing. So I'm like, yeah, so we got another half to play. So, coach kept us focused, kept us locked in, made sure we didn't, make any other plays out to be bigger than what it was, and make sure we won the game first. But I do remember the bench going crazy. And then at halftime, we were in a small little locker room. Wouldn't say celebrating, but, acknowledging the play. And it was a lot of fun.
That sounds like a very Roy Williams thing, is to make sure we rein in that play, don't make it bigger than the game itself. That's impressive. So you talked about earlier about your senior night at UNC, and there's going to be some guys out there tonight playing their senior night and their last chance in the Smith Center. What were your emotions with that? You talked about your dad having a chance to see you, which I'm sure kind of overcame you a little bit. And I know Coach Williams was always really big in emphasizing the moment of senior night. So I'd ask you, what were your emotions there, and how do you kind of keep that funneled so that your focus is on your opponent, and in tonight's case, and a lot of cases, Duke?
Sorry, I had to take that Nike shirt off, man. I'm a Puma guy. That's just my Cleveland Cavaliers. My Cleveland Cavaliers, sweatsuit they gave us. But it's a hard thing to balance as a college kid, especially. The emotions running high, and focus on just the game and not allowing that they get the best of you. There's been a couple of tough games that I've played in that emotionally were roller coasters. That being one of them. Another one, playing after the passing of Kobe in the Lakers building. In the bubble, there were some instances, and there was another one that was really tough. Something happened recently that was hard to play in. Trying to remember what it was. Man,
wasn't DeMar, was it?
DeMar?
DeMar Hamlin, the football player.
No. I think something else happened. There was something else that we had to. There's so many things that's going on in this world. George Floyd being one of them. There's another case in Memphis where there's a police brutality situation. There was it's extremely hard games to play in and focus on the game. And I honestly said it was one of the hardest games I had to play. I'm trying to remember what it was. It was something recent though. And it couldn't have been that recent because I didn't play much this year. But yeah, Kobe passing was one of the hardest games to play in for sure. And said when your emotions get the best of you and you have your family there and everybody's watching you and you see your family that you didn't think it would be there, that was one of the emotionally toughest games to play in. So just trying to hone in on those emotions and trying to control them and not to think too much about the outside stuff and just focus on basketball. So that was one of my first times having to go through that. So yeah, you kind of just, you see them, you acknowledge them, you have the seniors, and then, it's all right. It made it easier though that it was Duke. It's easy to focus on the game when it's Duke. If it was another team, it would have been harder to focus on. But because it's Duke, it's like, all right, we got to beat these bastards. We got to lock in. We got to, excuse my language. It's like, all right, you look at that jersey. It's like, all right, you see red. You know what I'm saying? You see blood, so you're out for blood. So it made it a little easier for us to focus in on that and not on the emotion side. Once the game's over, then you get back to the emotional side of things and your family there giving you a senior speech. Things of that nature. So yeah, it's a tough balance, man. It's tough to do, especially as a youngster, but it's something you have to learn over time or have the right people around you, the right group, the right, people you share a locker room space with, a huddle with, and your coaching staff to keep you, grounded.
Last question for me, and we're talking to Danny Green, of course, Carolina legend and NBA champion. And on that same area there, what's the biggest difference besides the money and the grind of playing college ball and pro ball? And clearly you've played on the biggest stages throughout your career. What's the jump like, first of all, from college to pro, but then also what are the atmospheres like? And how is that so much different, or is it from the college game to the pro game?
I honestly think in more instances than none, I think the college atmosphere might be a little more hectic than the pro atmosphere because of the kids, the college campus, the student section. There are some arenas, no takeaway from, there's some arenas that get rowdy. Not all, and it's not as consistent as the college atmosphere is. But yeah, I think the jump from college to the NBA, I think we might have held more fans than most NBA arenas with 21,750. I think in Carolina, most NBA arenas are like 1920. So we might have gotten most people there in that aspect of how many fans. But it's probably a little more raw on the NBA level. When you're in Boston or Philly, you a little more rawness to the fan base. They'll say some things that you may not used to hearing. But back then, I say back then, but it was a little while ago when I was in college. There was some more things said then too. There's some funny things, and also some things that might be offensive or really offensive to you. So it's not a big jump when it comes to that. When it comes to the fan base and playing the crowd, obviously the rules are different. The game is faster. Guys jump higher, and the guys, surprisingly, people don't think, but you have to have a higher IQ. Like the IQ has to be faster. Like the speed of the game, the smarts of the game. Everything is faster, stronger, and guys even smarter. So you have to adapt and adjust to that quicker. You have to know who you're closing out to in the blink of a second. And the sooner you can do that, the sooner you can slow the game down. So I started to notice even more because I sat out for more than half the year this year, and coming back, the game is moving so fast. You're like, damn, I got to catch up with the game. I got to find a way to slow it down. It still takes some time to do that. Even when you are used to doing it, the game is still moving fast, and you have to make decisions really quickly. That's why you'll see some Shaq in a fool moments, is because guys are making quick decisions. It might be the really wrong decision at the time, but they don't know. So after they look at the play or watch it on film, they're like, oh, damn, this is an easy play, but the game is moving so fast. It's like I had to make a quick decision: either throw it to the wing or corner. You throw it to the corner, the guy's he might not even be in the corner, but he's supposed to be, and you might end up on a Shaq Fool play. So just everything is moving a lot faster. The game's a lot stronger, so then you have to think a lot quicker too.
I've listened to Charles Barkley a lot talk about folks got to realize the 12th guy in the pros will kick your butt, and he's better than everybody. Yeah, so
the 15th guy is very good. They're really good players. Even said the guys at the end of our bench are better than most college players for sure.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing. One more I wanted to sneak in there before I let Joey close us out with a good question. My question is NBA championship versus NCAA championship. What was that
tough,
like,
man? It's a tough comparison, man. Because I think with both you need a little bit of luck on your side with staying healthy, everybody being healthy. With college, I think it's because anybody could win any given night. Any given night might not be your night, so you could lose any given night, even if you're the best team out there. So it takes a little bit more of luck on your side of being not just healthy, but playing basketball, the right basketball, and playing on your Saturday night or your Friday or Thursday or Sunday, whatever it is, and making sure you're not coming out laying an egg, even though you might be the best team in the nation. But I think which makes it a little bit harder to do, because it's hard to just come out and play your best game every night for, I guess, 6-7 nights in a row. Well, not in a row, but you get what I mean. NBA, it's a fair argument that it's harder because you have to beat a team 4 times. You have to beat a bunch of teams 4 times. But they're both very difficult in their own sense. Hard to compare. I don't want to try to, say one is harder than the other or better than the other. But both very much well worth it, and both, great celebrations. I think celebrate the NBA one's a little bit better, a little bit more, it seems a little more mental and physical on your body. Harder to do in that sense. So by the end of it, you're just relieved and you get a chance to just, relax, let your hair down, breathe a little bit, and let your body heal. But be mentally, off, not have to worry about coming to work the next day, and you just relax and be with your family. So I think that relief was a bigger relief than probably the NCAA one.
We're talking with Danny Green, a guy that's got more rings than a box of old telephones. Danny, last question before we let you get out of here, man. You mentioned and you referred to yourself earlier as a youngster, which again sounds like a Roy Williamsism. I want to ask you, when Coach Williams retired and Hubert Davis was given the job, did you have any thoughts and emotions, and how do you feel, or what do you see from Hubert Davis as the head coach and the head man of the program right now?
I thought he was a perfect fit. I thought he was a great fit. And when it happened, I wasn't surprised by it. I wasn't shocked by it. I don't think anybody was. There was a couple of people that could have been up for it. Obviously, I love Coach Rob. I thought he was a great candidate as well. But I think Hubert, once he got there, I think they were, he was the one that they were looking to or grooming to. And I think he was, the perfect guy for the job, especially when you're trying to turn around a program, just because of his positivity and his outlook and perspective on life. Not saying that other guys didn't have that. But he had that energy to where it was like, all right, if you're going to be in a rebuild situation, you're going to need a guy that has this great positive energy, like a Ted Lasso type of energy. So, and to me, he had that in that sense, and he obviously had been on every different level of playing experience-wise, and even coaching and talking the game. So yeah, I had no doubts of him being able to handle and do the job. It was just how quickly he would turn around. Nobody expected him to be able to accomplish what he's accomplished this quickly in the couple of years that he's been head coach.
Well, Danny, we appreciate it, man. Thanks for making time for us. I know you just got done with practice up in the land. We'll talk with you sometime very soon. I know you'll be tied up with your own game, but I'm sure you'll catch a score, some highlights as soon as this ball game tonight's over with. But
for sure,
Danny, we appreciate you, man. Hope to talk to you sometime very soon. That's Danny Green.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you, man.
Carolina national champion, world champion multiple times over.